So in this video, we'll create this 3D model of a stylized vending machine in the Blender software. We'll work on modeling, shading and texturing, lighting, and then at last, we'll render this scene. So to begin with, I have this new Blender file opened, and the first thing that we'll be doing is basically to start with modeling the basic shape of the vending machine that we're going to create. And for that, we'll begin with this cube that we have in the scene. So I'll select both the light and the camera and press X to delete. Then with this cube selected, I'll go to the front view by pressing 1 on the numpad and then enter the edit mode, press S and Z to scale it up in the Z axis. Let's keep the height of the vending machine to something like this. And then for the length and the breadth, I'll first scale this up in the x-axis like this, and let's change the angle. Now for the y-axis, let's slightly scale this up. We won't be scaling it up too much because we're trying to make a stylized vending machine model and not really something that looks very realistic. And this is really the best part of making stylized 3D models because you don't really have to aim for perfection in terms of realism, but instead what you can do is you can study from different reference images, both of the real object, which is the vending machine in this case, and also at some of its popular stylized versions, and then you should come up with something of your own. This holds true not just for this vending machine example, but for any stylized 3D model that you are planning to create, and on the basis of those references that you're using, you will be able to decide what size the object should be having, how much should be the height, the thickness, the bevel, and other details that we'll add in a moment. So all these things will depend on that. But coming back to the modeling part, I think that the basic shape is looking nice for the vending machine. And so we can work on adding the details here. Like in the final rendered version, I want to have these edges that you can see here as curved. And for that, we'll use the bevel tool here. So with all the vertices selected, press Ctrl B to apply bevel and use the scroll wheel to control the amount of bevel like this. And I won't be keeping it too much because if I keep a very high value of bevel, then it won't really give me a nice cuboidal shape that I want. So I'll undo this. And one more important thing before I actually bevel this, it's that let's say I want the beveling to be something like this. And now let's say I want to change the scaling. So if I try to press S and X, then you will notice that even these beveled areas are getting stretched, which isn't really a very nice thing. And this is basically happening because we are scaling the object after using the bevel tool. So I would give you two suggestions. The first one is to undo this and first choose the exact shape and size that you want for your object and then use the bevel tool by pressing Ctrl B. Otherwise, if you think that you would need to make changes in the scaling later on, then instead of using the bevel tool in the edit mode, you should use the bevel modifier. So if I go to the modify properties here, then click on add modifier and type bevel, then I can select this modifier here and you will notice that we have the basic beveling applied. But if I go on to increase the number of segments to 2 or 3 and increase the amount to let's say 0.25, then go to the edit mode. And now if I try to scale it up in the x-axis or in the y-axis, then you will notice that the beveled part is not getting stretched at all. And this is the advantage of using the modifiers in Blender. You can make the changes at any stage of modeling, no matter how many details you have added, or if you want to change the overall shape or the structure. So this is something where using the modifiers, especially the bevel modifier while you are modeling an object, can be a very helpful thing. For now, I'll undo the change in scale, and I think that I should increase the amount to let's say 0.5, and then I'm going to test it with some different scale values so that I can get a nice shape for the vending machine model that I want. So I think I should slightly scale this up again in the y-axis so that we'll have sufficient space for different objects or basically the products that we'll have inside the vending machine. Apart from this, I also think that I should scale this up in the z-axis slightly so that we have some adequate space for the shelves and that thing at the bottom from where the product basically comes out, and we'll also need to have some space over here for the buttons. So I think I should slightly scale it up in the x-axis, not too much because then it won't really look like a vending machine. But for now I think that the overall shape is looking nice. Now we have these sharp edges here that we don't want. So I'll right click to apply shade smooth. And now I think that I should go for a higher number of segments. Let's say 5. And in the amount, I should go with 0.6 maybe. Like you would have to test this yourself depending on the exact kind of shape that you're looking. But right now I think that 0.6 in the amount and 5 set as the number of segments in the bevel modifier works fine for this model that I'm trying to create. So I'll go with this one. Now, if you take a look at the final rendered version that we are going to create, you will notice that we have some parts on the outer body as separately colored. They are slightly extruded as compared to the rest of the body. And to achieve such a result here, what I'm going to do is to go to the edit mode, and first of all, I'll press 3 for the face select mode, then select this face on the front side, or maybe I should check it by going to the front view if this is actually the front face or not. And yes, this is the front one. Then I'll press P to separate by selection, then go back to the object mode, select this object which is the face that we just separated, and press H to hide. This hidden object will basically be used to form the door with the glass later on. But for now, I'll be selecting this outer body of the vending machine. Press tab to enter the edit mode. And now if you take a look at the final render version, you will notice that the outer body is having different colors, and basically they're representing the details like the extrusion, which basically separates that part from the remaining mesh. So in this case also, we have to create those details, and for that, what we'll be doing here is to use the loop cut tool so that we can add some loops here. So press Ctrl R for the loop cut tool, then use the scroll wheel to increase the number of loop cuts. Here I'll be adding 2 loop cuts, then left click, and right now I want them to appear on the default position in the middle. So I'll right click, and then what I'm going to do is I'll scale this up in the Z axis by pressing S, Z, and this will basically place them apart in the Z axis like this, and left click. I think I should slightly push these closer like this so that we can have a larger area where we have the details. And similarly, on the top also, let me add 2 loop cuts by pressing Ctrl R, then left click and right click to cancel the movement. And then I'll press S and X to scale these like this, or basically to set them apart like this, and left click. Now let's say I select these two faces over here, and I want to extrude them to create the details that I want. So if I try to press E to extrude, or let's say I undo this and instead go to the extrude menu by pressing Alt E and then select extrude faces along normals and extrude it like this, then you will notice that we have one problem. Previously, if I undo, we had these bevel details, or basically the rounded edges, because of the bevel modifier. But once I extrude these faces over here, we are kind of losing those details, which is happening because we are extruding the faces which are on the corner, and in doing so, it will make the faces more flat as compared to before, so that they can be extruded in their normal direction. So these faces will get extruded, but at the same time, we'll be losing all those details. And since we do not want that to happen, so what I'll do is to undo this, and with none of the faces extruded, I'll go to the bevel modifier, click here and select apply, and do note that a modifier can only be applied if you are in the object mode. Instead, if I undo and go to the edit mode, and then if I try to apply this, then I won't be able to apply the modifier. So just make sure that you are in the object mode, then apply the bevel modifier. Now if I go to the edit mode, we have these beveled edges because of the bevel modifier being applied. And now what I'll do is I'll select these faces over here with the face select mode enabled. And now if I try to press Alt E, then extrude the faces along normals, then in this case you will notice that we are no longer losing the curved or the rounded edges, or basically the bevel details. For now, I'll undo this because I'll be selecting the required faces on the bottom side also, so that we can ensure that the details are symmetrical. So with the shift key holded, let's select these faces also like this, then press Alt E, select extrude faces along normals. And for now, I'll left click here because I can adjust the value of the offset from here. So I think I should keep it to something like 0.15. And after that, what I'll do is to basically select the boundary edges on these details that we have created. In fact, let me select the required edges so that you can understand it in a better way. So first I'll press 2 for the edge select mode. Then I'll select this edge over here. And now I need to select this edge loop that is running from this particular vertex to this one over here. And for this, I'll hold the Alt and the Shift key together and left click here. Now at the same time, with the Alt and the Shift key holded, I'll select this edge and then select this edge loop. This will select all the edges on the boundary, and now I'll press Ctrl B to apply the bevel here. Let's increase the number of segments to, let's say, 3 or maybe 4, depending on how curved you want this to be. And then I'll left click, and for the final adjustments, I'll change this width to let's say 0.09, or let's try zero point 0.1. And for the number of segments, I think I should keep this to 6. And in a similar way, I'll do the same thing for the bottom part here. So let's change the angle. Then with the Alt and the Shift key hold, I'll be selecting all those edges. Now press Ctrl B to apply the bevel and left click. Then in this menu over here, I'll change the width to zero point 0.1 and keep the number of segments to zero point 0.6. I won't be changing these. And let's go to the object mode to take a look at how the outer body is now looking. Now what I personally feel is that we have a very nice basic shape, but it still lacks the geometry or the details. And to avoid this issue, a very simple thing that we can do is to use the subdivision surface modifier. So let's say I press Ctrl 1, which is the shortcut to add the subdivision surface modifier. Then in this case, we get a mesh with more subdivisions, or basically more details. And I can control the levels viewport value, or basically the number of times this mesh will be subdivided. And when I use the subdivision surface modifier, a problem that you will notice if you have anything beveled or extruded is this weird geometry like you can see here. And to fix this, you just have to do a very simple thing, which is to add the loop cuts around these areas. So let's see this practically. I'll press Ctrl R to add a loop cut and shift this over here. And the moment you do this, you will notice that we no longer notice the issues. Similarly, for the other side, I'll press Ctrl R and add a loop cut here as well. Now I'll select the edge loop that I just added here, and I'll press G twice to slide this slightly over here, so that I'll basically be able to select it later on when needed. After this, the next thing that I'll do is to add a loop cut here as well. So I'll press Ctrl R and add a loop cut here. Now I'll change the angle to see if anything else is needed. Like here, I think that I can add one loop cut over here. And after this, I'll be adding one more loop cut over here by pressing Ctrl R and bring this down over here like this. And while doing this step of adding the loop cuts, you will yourself notice how the mesh will react to the placement of the loops. Like if I pull it away from the area where we need it, you will notice that the region will be slightly stretched out. But if I bring it closer, then you can say that it gets more sharp and it gives a nice overall appearance. So this is an important step if you have some bevel details and you're using the subdivision surface modifier with that. Let me check this on the bottom side also if anything else is needed. And for now, I think that we have the basic shape ready. Now the next thing that I'm going to do before continuing with the modeling is to click here to open the viewport shading settings, and I'll enable the cavity option because it allows us to see the mesh in a much better way. Like you can notice the empty spaces, the sharp parts, the curves. So enabling this setting is a very useful thing that you can do. You can even turn on the shadows if you need, but for now I don't really think that it's important for modeling this, so I'll disable and return back to the scene. Now the outer body of the vending machine looks almost ready. We might be making some final adjustments later on, but right now it will be better if we start with modeling the door of the vending machine. And for that we had this cube.001, which I'll unhide. Then I'll select this. Now while looking at this shape, I think that it's not really the best idea to use this to model the door, because we now have the curved or the rounded edges here, and this one still has the flat edges. Although there are a few ways we can use, like I can go to the edit mode and extrude it in the y-axis, and then I'll have to adjust the thickness. But I think that that would take too much time, and we do have a much easier and faster way to do the same thing. So I'll be deleting this for now because we don't need it anymore. And I'll select this outer body of the vending machine. Let's go to the edit mode. And with the Alt key holded, if I left click here, then this will select this entire outer edge loop where we basically want to create the door. And let's say I press Shift D to create a duplicate of this, then right click to cancel the movement, and to convert it into a separate object, just like we did before, I'll press P to open the separate menu and select separate by selection. Now let's go to the object mode, and we again have the two objects in the scene. I think it's better to rename these so that it won't create any confusion later on. So I'll double click here to change the name of this object from cube to body, and for the other one, I'll double click here and change this to door. Now let's go to the edit mode by pressing the tab key, press A to select all, then I'll open the fill menu by pressing Ctrl F and select grid fill. Now by default, the way it fills the faces might not really be very smooth in terms of the topology, or if you say the arrangement of vertices. And to fix this thing, what you can do is you can try to change the value of the span and offset here. This might take some time to get the perfect or near to perfect results, but once you get that, it will be nice to go with. Here, I don't really think that I need to change the offset value because I'm already getting a nice result here. And I can even turn on the simple blending if I want these to look more evenly or more smoothly placed. But in this case, I'll be disabling this option because I would like to go with flat edges instead of the curved ones that we just saw. Now currently, if I go to the side view, you will notice that the object that we are using to model the door is not having any thickness. It's a completely flat, plane-like object, and to give it some thickness, we'll use the extrude tool. But before that, just to ensure that all of the edges are selected here, so you can press A to confirm this, and then press E to extrude this, let's say till over here. Now I'll press tab to return back to the object mode, then right click to apply shade smooth. This will make these edges that were previously flat as smoothly shaded. And now I'll go to the top view, or maybe let's go to the side view, and I'll push these slightly inwards by pressing G and Y. Let's place them over here. We are still noticing these slight gaps because of, I guess, scaling issues. So what I'll do is I'll go to the edit mode, press A to select all, and scale it up slightly in the z-axis. Let's do the same thing in the x-axis like this, and let's even do this slightly in the y-axis and return back to the object mode. This will give us a proper door for the vending machine, and now overall we have the outer body as well as the door ready. And the next thing that I'm going to do, the legs of the vending machine. And for that I'll be using some cylinder objects. So let's go to the front view. Let's zoom out, press Shift A and select the cylinder. Press G to move it and place it over here. Now press tab to enter the edit mode. Let's scale this down like this. Let's go to the side view to see its placement. And I've also enabled the X-ray mode by pressing Alt Z. Now what I'll do is I'll scale this down and then scale this up in the Z axis slightly like this and return back to the object mode. Press G to move it forward in the Y axis and I'll place this over here. Let's go to the front view to check its placement from here as well. And now to make this rounded from the bottom, I'll go to the edit mode, and with this lower edge loop selected, I'll press Ctrl B to apply bevel and use the scroll wheel to set the number of segments to 4 or 5 depending on how curved I want this to be. Then right click and apply shade smooth. Now I'll change the angle to take a look at it, and I think that I can slightly reduce its overall size. So in the edit mode, I'll scale it down slightly. Let's go to the side view again and push it slightly forward in the Y axis. Then I'll create its duplicate and place it over here. Now I'll select both of these. Let's go to the front view, press Shift D to create a duplicate and move it in the X axis. And in case you want the results to be completely symmetrical, then what you can do is you can delete both of these duplicates. Then let's say I select this one, go to the modify properties, click on add modifier and search for the mirror modifier. And for those of you who don't know what the mirror modifier does, it basically creates a mirrored object or a duplicate object on the other side of the axis depending on whatever you choose here, and also depending on the mirror object. Like in this case, I have the cylindrical object selected, which is the leg of the vending machine, and let's say I click on this eyedropper to select the mirror object and I keep it on the body of the vending machine and then left click, then this will make the selection of the mirror object as the body. And here you will notice that we now have the mirror object created on the opposite side, and the reason why it's appearing over here is we have selected the x-axis here. Now in a similar way, I can do the same thing for this one also. So I'll select this, go to the modify properties, click on add modifier, then in the generate category, select the mirror modifier, and in the mirror object, I'll select the body of the vending machine. With this, we now have the legs of the vending machine completely ready. And the next thing that I'm going to do is to go to the front view with these legs selected and push them slightly upwards like this and left click. Now finally we have the basic structure completely ready, and we can now work on adding the details to the door like the glass, the various buttons that we have and the other stuff. So to do this, I'll select this, then create its duplicate by pressing Shift D, go to the edit mode and slightly scale this down in the Z axis, and I'll also scale it down in the X axis. And yes, what I'm trying to do is to basically create that part of the door that will have the glass. So here I want its corner edges to be rounded just like we had for the door. Now I'll scale it down in the x-axis like this, and let me again scale this down in the z-axis. Now I'll go to the front view, press G to move it and place this over here, let's say. And the next thing that I'll do is to go to the edit mode, press A to select all and scale this slightly up in the y-axis so that we won't have the overlapping faces. And with this, we now have the object that we'll use for the glass. Other than this, we need to have some buttons here, the pickup box at the bottom, and a few more details. So first of all, let's begin with the buttons. Let's add a cube in the scene. So I press Shift A, go to Mesh and select the cube. Let's bring it forward in the y-axis. Then go to the edit mode. Now go to the front view. Let's scale this down like this. Let's place this over here where we want the button to be placed. Then I'll go to the edit mode. Let's scale this down in the z-axis. And I basically want this particular button to be slightly rounded at the edges, following the shape of the rest of the model. So I'll press Ctrl B to apply some bevel here. If you don't want to use the bevel tool, you can even use the bevel modifier, just like we did in the case of this outer body. And once we have added the bevel to this, the next thing that we'll do is to shade this smooth. And other than this, I'll go to the edit mode and scale this down in the y-axis like this. Now I'll go to the front view, or maybe let's go to the side view and push this back in the y-axis to over here. After this, I'll push it slightly upwards, let's say over here. Now let's zoom out and I'll be creating some duplicates of this by pressing Shift T and moving them down in the z-axis. And to repeat the same procedure again, I can use the shortcut, which is to press Shift R, and it will create a duplicate of it at same distance apart from the previous one. Let's say I add a total of 4 of these buttons here. So now this is how the machine is looking. Other than this, we need to have a pickup box at the bottom, and for that I'll try to use this same object that I used to create the buttons. Let's see if that really works or not. So with this selected, I'll create its duplicate, and let's say I place this over here, then go to the edit mode and scale it up in the x-axis and then in the z-axis. And I personally think that it can work out. I might have to make some changes in the placement of vertices which are being used for the bevel. I'll scale this up in the x-axis even more and also in the z-axis. Let's place this over here. Now I'll go to the side view, and now I'll scale this up in the y-axis because we want this part to be bigger, because we'll show it as an empty area from where the can or in fact any product in the vending machine will come out. So right now, I think that I can push it a little bit backwards in the y-axis like this and place it over here. And after this, the next thing that I'm going to do is to add a subdivision surface modifier to this. So I'll use the shortcut, which is to press Ctrl 1. It will set the subdivision to the level 1, but I think I should change this to level 2 for an even smoother geometry with more vertices. And this thing will allow us to have a cleaner arrangement of vertices when we remove this mesh volume from the door. And to remove this entire part that I'm talking about, we have to use the modifier, which is the Boolean modifier. So to use it here, I'll select the door, then go to the modifier properties, click on add modifier, then go to the generate category and select the Boolean modifier. Then in the object, I'll use the eyedropper tool to select this cube.004, and when I do this thing, you will notice it's not really giving us a very clean result. And to fix this thing, we simply have to use the bevel modifier. So with the door object selected, I'll again go to the modifier properties, then click on add modifier, and in the same generate category, I'll use the bevel modifier and I'll set the number of segments to maybe 2 or 3, and I think I should keep this amount to 0.1 only. Other than this, you can even try to increase the levels viewport value in the subdivision, but do remember that it will significantly increase the poly count that can affect your performance, especially if you're working on low-end PC. So in most of the cases, it would be advised to keep this value to maybe 2 or a maximum of 3 depending on the mesh object. And now if I select this cube object and press H to hide it, then you can see that we have a more or less clean geometry for this cutout region. Now the next thing that I'm going to do is to basically create a duplicate of this cube object that we used for the cutout. We'll basically use it as the lowermost part of the vending machine. So to do this thing, what I'll do is to create a duplicate of this mesh object by pressing Shift D and then right click to cancel the movement. Then I'll go to the outliner and I'll hide the old object both in the 3D viewport as well as in the render by clicking on this camera icon. And instead I'll select this object, which is named as cube.005, or the duplicate of the object that we just hid it in the scene. And with this selected, I'll go to the edit mode. Let's also go to the front view, press 3 for the face select mode. Then I'll be selecting all the faces over here which I can see in the front, and I'll delete these by pressing X and selecting delete faces. This will make this part empty. Then I'll press A to select all, and I'll slightly scale this down so that there will be no overlapping of the faces. Then I'll press Alt E and select extrude faces along normals, and I'll slightly extrude it inwards like this and left click. Now I'll go to the object mode, and to give this a nice appearance, what I need to do is I have to make these corners look more beveled or rounded. So to try that out, I'll go to the modify properties, and the modifier that I'm going to use right now is the same bevel modifier that we used previously. And in this, I'll set the number of segments to 2, and I can even control the amount from here. But I think that 0.1 meters should work fine, and number of segments can be set to 2. Other than this, I'll increase the levels viewport value to 3, and after this, I'll go to the side view by pressing 3 on the numpad, and I'll then push it backwards in the y-axis like this and left click. Let's change the angle to take a look at it from the front. And finally, I think that this pickup box is completely ready. And now what we are going to do is we'll be making the shelves for the inside part of the vending machine. So for this, I'll go back to the solid mode, then press Alt C to turn on the X-ray mode, and I'll be adding some cube objects and align them properly in the Z-axis so that we can then convert them into shelves. So to do all that, I'll first press Shift A, then go to Mesh and select Cube. Let's go to the Edit mode and then scale this down in the Z-axis. Let's even scale this up in the X-axis a little bit like this, and then push it in the X-axis over here. We have to align it properly like this, and then move it downwards in the Z-axis, let's say over here, or maybe let's push it down even further, let's say till here. Other than this, we'll need 2 to 3 shelves more on the top. So with this one selected, I'll press Shift D to create a duplicate and move it up in the Z-axis, and then repeat the same procedure to get one more shelf over here. Then I'll go to the side view to check their placement from this angle as well. And currently I think that in terms of the Z-axis, we have properly placed these shelves, but we still need to make the changes like the positions in the Y-axis. So for that, what I'm going to do is I'll be selecting all the 3 shelves. Then I'll go to the edit mode and I'll scale these up in the Y-axis like this. And then I'll push them forward in the Y-axis over here till this point. Now after this, I think I should disable the X-ray mode, select the glass panel on the door, press H to hide it, and let's also hide the door that we have here. And after this, I think we should add some details on these shelves. So let's say I select this one, or maybe I should select all 3 together, then go to the edit mode, select the faces on the top, then press I to inset, press E to extrude them down like this, then adjust the depth of extrusion and left click. We won't be making it too deep because we want the products like cans and other stuff which are inside the vending machine to be properly visible. So let's keep it to something like this. I think we should use some subdivision surface modifier and bevel modifier. So let's say with this one selected, I press Ctrl 2 to add the subdivision surface modifier. Then we'll get something very weird. And the reason why it's happening is the lack of geometry or the vertices in the original model. And to avoid this, we can simply add some loop cuts here. Like if I press Ctrl R to add a loop cut like this, then we'll have some more geometry that will be useful for the subdivision surface modifier to work. So in a similar way, I'll add one more loop cut over here. Let's add one more over here like this, and one last loop cut for this end. Now I'll go back to the object mode, then right click to apply shade smooth. And if you want, you can make any other changes in the depth of the shelf, or maybe if you want to increase the levels in the subdivision surface modifier, or maybe you can press A to select all the faces and then press Ctrl B to apply bevel to these like this and left click. This will make the corners look a lot more natural than before. And for the other 2 shelves, you can repeat the same procedure again, or what you can do is you can simply duplicate these and place them one by one on the positions of the other 2 shelves like this. And then I'll go to the outliner and I'll be selecting the older 2 shelves, that is the cube.006 and the cube.007, and I'll delete these by pressing X like this. Now I have the shelves properly placed in the vending machine. After this, I'll go to the outliner section again and will unhide the door and the glass. Then to see through the mesh, I'll enable the X-ray mode. And finally, this is how a more detailed structure of the vending machine model is looking. We created the door, these buttons over here, the shelves that you can see inside, this box at the bottom. Now what's left here is just some cans for these shelves, which you can replace with any product that you like. Then we can work on the shading part, lighting, and finally rendering the complete scene. So to model a simple and stylized can that we can keep in these shelves, what I'll do is I'll press A to select all and I'll move these in the x-axis by let's say 10 meters. Now I'll press Shift A, then go to Mesh and select a cylindrical object. Let's also disable the X-ray mode. And to model this, let's say I go to the edit mode. Let's also switch to the front view so that we can see everything properly. And I'll scale this up in the z-axis like this so that the height of the cylinder will be somewhat close to what a can looks like. And now to give this some geometry, I'll be adding some loop cuts here. So I'll press Ctrl R and use the scroll wheel to increase the number of loop cuts. Let's say I keep this to 14 or 15, then left click to confirm and right click to cancel the movement. Now after this, I'll press 3 for the face select mode, then select this top face. And now I want to basically scale this down, but I won't be directly doing it because I also want the scaling to affect the vertices which are surrounding this face. And to do this thing, we have to basically use the proportional editing tool, which I can enable from here, or I can use the shortcut which is to press O. Now if I press S and use the scroll wheel to set the size of circle of proportion, I can easily control the area in which the effect of the scaling will be visible. So let's say I keep this to this much scaling. Let's see it from the front view. I think I should slightly scale it up like this. And then for the bottom, I'll select this face. Let's switch back to the front view and slightly scale this down like this and left click. We now have a very basic shape of a can. If you want, you can make any adjustments in the size or anything else in the model that you want. For example, instead of having an n-gon face, you can convert this into one that has the quad faces, which is obviously better for a smoother topology and a better arrangement of vertices. So to do this thing, I'll press X and select delete faces, then select this loop of vertices, then press Ctrl F to open the face menu, and in this select the grid fill. Now you might have to change the span or the offset value in this tiny menu on the bottom left corner to achieve the desired result depending on how smooth you want the arrangement of vertices to be. And after that you can repeat the same procedure for this bottom part as well. So I'll select this face, then delete it and select this entire vertex loop, then press Ctrl F for the face menu and select grid fill. Other than this, I don't really think that I need to make any other changes anywhere. But if you want, feel free to make any changes, be it in the size or the geometry, or if you want to add any more details. Like let's just suppose you want to add some extrusion on the top part. So what you can do is you can go to the top view, then select this vertex. Then to increase the selection of vertices, you can use the shortcut Control and plus on the numpad and continue using this shortcut 3 to 4 times till you are able to select all the vertices on this top side. Then press E to extrude, right click to cancel, press S to slightly scale this down, but I think I should disable the proportional editing tool and then scale this down and then press E to extrude it down like this. Other than this, currently it looks very low poly and with flat faces. So to avoid this, you can right click to apply shade smooth and you can also use the subdivision surface modifier or the bevel modifier. So let's say I press Ctrl 1 or Ctrl 2 to add the subdivision, and then for some bevel effect, I'll use the bevel modifier. So let's add it and I'll place it above the subdivision and I'll set the number of segments to 2 and the amount to the default 0.1 meters. Finally, I think that we have a decent model of a can which looks pretty good, but again, it might be possible that you would want to make any changes anywhere and you are completely free to do that. And once you have made all those changes, we can proceed forward and place these in the vending machine that we created. So I'll enable the X-ray mode by pressing Alt C, and to place this over here, I'll press G to move it, let's say over here. But very clearly, we need to adjust the size of the can. So I'll go to the edit mode, press S to scale this down like this. And I think I should also disable the proportional editing tool and try again. And after this, I switch to the top view and place this can over here. Let's also go to the side view to see if the positioning is proper or not. And I think I should push it slightly downwards like this. And let's also push it forward in the y-axis. Now let's again go to the front view. I'll create its duplicate and place it in the x-axis, let's say over here. And I think that its position should not really be same in the y-axis, so I can push it slightly backwards. And then you can place these randomly anywhere on the tray, but just make sure that you're taking care of the fact that they're properly placed on the tray and they're not just lying in the air or that they're not outside the tray. So just take care of these things. And other than this, I can add a few more cans here like this and randomly place them anywhere. In fact, what I can even do is to select a can, and if I rotate this in the x-axis by 90 degrees, and let's say I rotate this in the z-axis by 45 degrees, or maybe let's rotate it in this way, then I can show it in this way that this one can is fallen on the tray like this. So you can add any randomness in the cans, their positions, placement, their rotations. You can even play around with different shapes if you want. And once you're done with that, you can select all of these and create their duplicates and place them down for the remaining shelves. But I'll be doing that later on when I'm done with the shading and textures part. So I won't be touching that right now. And before I move forward, I'll be unhiding the body of the vending machine. And currently, I think that the entire vending machine model is perfectly ready. There might be a few adjustments that we can do while applying the shaders, but other than that, there's nothing else left to be done. So I'll go to the front view, press A to select all, and I'll move this back in the x-axis by 10 meters. And do make sure that you type minus 10 meters here so that it will be in the negative x-axis and not the positive. Now to add some materials here, the first thing that I'll do is to select the render engine by going to the render properties and changing the render engine from EV to cycles. And I'll also set the device to GPU. Then let's switch to the render preview mode. And currently we do not have any lighting in the scene, so everything will appear dark like this. And to fix this temporarily, what I'll do is click here on this drop down, and this will open the viewport shading menu from where I can disable the scene lights and the scene world. This will provide us with a fake HDRI in the scene, or basically some lighting, so that we can see the objects for now. And with the body of the vending machine selected, I'll be creating some materials for this. So I'll go to the material properties, and with the default material added here, I'll make the changes in the base color and roughness and other parameters. But just in case you're not able to see this material added here and it appears empty like this, you can simply click on the new button to create a new material in a new slot. For now, I'll undo this to get the original material back. And here for the base color, I want this to be a very light color, something like white or maybe a little pinch of yellow color. So I'll keep the base color to this, and in the roughness, I'll change this to 0. This will ensure that we have some reflections and basically some smoothness on the surface. And currently, the same material is being applied to both this outer body of the vending machine as well as the door of the vending machine and even this glass. And the reason why it's happening is that we created these extra meshes of the door and the glass from the existing mesh of the body of the vending machine. If you remember, we selected some vertices and separated them into a new object and then modeled all this stuff. So that is the reason why we are seeing the same material added. But if you want to remove this material, then you can simply click on this minus icon after selecting the required object, and this will remove the material from it. And now coming back to the vending machine, I think that it currently looks very dull, and so I'll be changing this base color to something like the blue color. Maybe I'll reduce some brightness or maybe add some little green color to it, something like this. But I won't be keeping it completely blue because that would take away the contrast that we can have. So what I'll do is I'll go to the edit mode, then select this face over here, and I'll be creating a new material for this. So after clicking the plus icon to create the new material slot, I'll click on the assign button and also on the new button to create the new material. And then to increase the selection, I'll use the shortcut, which is to hold Control and press the plus key on the numpad and then click on the assign button. After this, I'll go to the base color and I'll change this to something yellow like we had before, basically a mix of white and yellow like this. And I'll also reduce the roughness down to 0. Other than this, I'll now select this door of the vending machine, and for this, the base material that I'll be choosing is the same material.001 that I used over here for the body of the vending machine. But yes, if you want, you can make any changes here in the base color or any other property. Like if you want it to look metallic, you can increase this value, or if you want to have less reflections, you can increase the roughness. So you can do all these things. And if you want, you can even set different colors for both of these parts. You can simply click on this icon, which is to duplicate a material, and then if you'll make a change in the color, it will only get applied to the selected object. But currently I do not want this to happen, so I'll undo. And now the next thing that I'm going to do is to create a very simple and a basic glass-like shader, and it will be very simple because I won't be using any glass shader node or anything complicated. I'll simply go to the material properties and create a new material with this. Then in the transmission, I'll increase this value to 1, and I'll also bring down the index of refraction value to something very low like 1.1. But currently I'm not able to see through the glass, which is happening because of this door. We have not yet applied any boolean to create this empty space for the glass object on the door. So what I'm going to do is to select the door, then go to the modify properties, and I'll duplicate this boolean modifier and change this object to this glass door, and I'll change the solver type to float. You can even change the solver type here from exact to float in case of this lower part as well, and this will give us this empty space where we have the glass now, but currently it's too much blurred, which is basically happening because of the index of refraction value. So I think I should lower it down even further. Let's keep this to 1.02, or I'll bring it further down to 1.01, and I think that this one looks better. So I'll keep this one as the final. Other than this, for the buttons, I'll be selecting this first one and I'll give this some dark material, something like the dark blue color. I'll reduce the brightness to make this even darker. And after this, I'll go to the roughness value and bring it down to something very low like 0.1 or 0.2, because I want this button to look like it's very smooth and reflecting just like the body and the other parts. Then I'll use the same material, which is this dark blue colored one, for one more button, let's say this one. So I'll click on this icon over here and select the material .003. Then for this one, I'll create a new material and we'll change the base color to something like the pink color or maybe some purple color. Then I'll adjust the brightness and we'll bring down the roughness value in this case as well. Let's keep this to 0.15, and you can adjust this value to get the perfect reflecting material depending on how smooth or how reflecting you want the surface to be. In my case, I think that a value of around 0.1 or 0.2 looks fine, so I'll go with that. And I'm going to use the same material for this button as well. So with this selected, I'll click here to open the material list and select material.004. And in this way, I'm able to complete the materials for the body, the door, and even some buttons here. We also created this for the glass. And one more thing that I should repeat here is that for this glass material that we created, we did not use anything complicated like a glass shader node or something else. We simply used the transmission property, which is to make the material transparent, and the index of refraction value that basically controls how you see the light passing through it. And if this is set to 1, then it will mean that we'll have a completely transparent look as if there's nothing in between our view and what's inside the vending machine. But if you decide to keep this value a little bit higher, let's say 1.5 or even 1.2, then you will notice some slight blur effect on it, which will give you a nice glass-like appearance. But in this case, we don't really want it to be this much blurred because we want to see what's inside the vending machine. And just because of that, I will advise you to keep this value to something low, or at least as close as possible to something like 1 or 1.1. Like if I keep this to 1.025 or maybe 1.04, then I'll get something with a very light blur effect, which looks more like noise right now. And we'll be able to see it in a much better way when we actually have some lighting inside the vending machine. So we'll work on that as well in a little while. But before that, the next thing that I'm going to do is create some material, or basically apply some material to these trays that we have inside the vending machine. So for these trays, or I should say the shelves, I am planning to use the same material that we have on this body of the vending machine, basically this blue colored material, which in the material properties you can see is the default material here. So what I'll do is I'll select this, then click here to open the material list and select that blue material, and it will get applied to the shelf over here. If you want, you can assign any different color by going to the base color and changing it. But for now, I don't really think that I'll be making such changes here. And I'll go with the same color for this one as well. So with this one selected, I'll click here and select the material. And similarly for this last one, I'll select it, then click here and select the required material. Now moving ahead, the next thing that I'm going to do is to add some details on this lower part of the vending machine. Like I don't really want it to have the same material on the lower as well as the upper part. I want this to look slightly different. So what I'm going to do is I'll create a separate material for this. So with this selected, I'll go to the edit mode, and then I think we need to add a loop cut here that will define the faces on which they'll have that material. So I'll press Ctrl R, Let's add a loop cut here and bring it down. Let's say till this point. Then I'll go to the front view. Let's zoom out and I'll also go back to the solid mode. Then press Alt Z to turn on the X-ray mode. Press 3 for the face select mode. And then I'll select all these faces at the bottom on which I want to apply a new material. And then I'll go to the material properties. Click on the plus icon to create a new slot. And then click on the new button to create a new material. Now to assign this new material that we have just created to these faces, I'll click on the assign button and then I'll switch back to the render preview mode. Let's also return back to the object mode. And now let's say I go to the base color and change anything here. Then that change will be seen on all the faces on which the material is applied. And it might be possible that it will try to cover some extra area that you might not have selected, which is also happening in this case. But you can solve this easily by adding another loop cut just above this one that we just created. So to see how this will work, I'll press Ctrl R to add one loop cut and bring it down near this one like this and left click. Now for the color, I don't really want it to look purple, but rather something like blue and something dark. So I'll reduce the brightness. And once I finalize the color, I'll go to the roughness value and bring it down to 0.2, or maybe I'll reduce it further to 0 to make this completely smooth and reflecting with no roughness at all, just like I did for the material on the body and the shelves. Other than this, I'll select this box, which is basically the pickup box, and I'll change its color to the one that I have on the door of the vending machine and also here on the body. It is the material.001. So I'll select this, then click here and select the required material. Moving ahead, let's now create some material for the legs of the vending machine. So with this selected, I'll create a new material, then go to the base color and bring down the brightness slider to reduce the brightness. You can adjust the brightness depending on how you want this to appear. Apart from this, I'll also bring down the roughness value to, let's say, 0.2. This much looks fine. And in the end, I'll select this pair also and we'll apply the same material as this one. So in the material properties, I'll click here and select the material. And with this, I can say that we have applied the materials on the entire vending machine. Obviously, you can make any changes that you need. Like you can change the color combinations, you can select different faces for different colors, basically apply different materials to different parts. But currently I'm looking for something very simple and not with too many colors. So I'll go with this. Just a single thing that I want to change is in this door. You can see that this line doesn't really looks very nice, which is because of the placement of the loop cut. So in the edit mode, I'll be selecting both of these loop cuts and I'll press G twice to slide these down to, let's say, over here and left click. Let's return back to the object mode and I think I should slide it down even further. Let's say over here, and this is how it looks. And yes, I think it looks completely perfect. I won't make any other change here. Now what's left in this scene is the cans that we have and the lighting inside the vending machine. So in order to do that, I'll be hiding this body of the vending machine. So with this selected, I'll press H to hide this. Then if I go to the top view, then you can see this. We have lots of cans here and I don't really remember why this is having the default material. I'll remove this. And now we have to give this some materials. Then we'll also create some cans for the other two shelves. Basically we'll duplicate these existing ones and maybe change their positions or the way they are rotated and also maybe their materials. So we'll look into that. But for now, I want to create a very simple material that looks nice on this can and it shouldn't really appear like it's too simple. It should have some texture on it, but not very much detailed. So for that, I am going to use the magic texture node in the shader editor. And to see how we'll do that, I'll change this window, which is the timeline editor, into the shader editor. So click here and change this to the shader editor. Then click on the new button to create a new material. And this will give us the default principal BSDF node. But since we need to apply some texture on this, or to be accurate, the magic texture, I need to add that particular node here. So press Shift A with your cursor in the shader editor window. Then go to texture and select the magic texture. I'll place this over here, then connect this to the base color. And this will show me the basic magic texture with the depth value set to 2, the scaling set to 5, and the distortion set to the default one. It doesn't have any colors now, but we can fix it in a little while once I have made the changes in the magic texture node. Like first of all, I'll reduce the depth to 1 because I don't want that much detail. Then I'll keep the scale value to something like 9 or maybe 9.1. This can vary depending on the size of the can and several other things, but I want to keep this value to something in between 5 and 10 only for my particular model. And I'll increase the distortion value slightly to give this a kind of distorted appearance like you can see here. Currently it looks very weird because it has like no specific color information. But once we add some colors to this, we can really give this some nice cool texture for a can. Like what I'll do to give this some colors is I'll add a color ramp node here. So if I press Shift A, then go to color and select color ramp, then place this over here, then this will give this a black and white appearance because the default colors in the color ramp node are 0 and 1 denoted by black and white. But suppose I select this, which is the black pointer, and click here to change the color, something let's say dark blue, then you will begin to notice some dark blue color on all those parts where you had the black color before. Similarly, instead of this white color, let's say you want the green color. So you can select the green color here and you will see the changes applied on this material. But in this case, I don't really think the green color will look that good because what I'm thinking is to use colors which are relevant for the scene, like let's say the yellow color or maybe some red color also, or even the blue color. So let's say I choose the yellow color, then to adjust the parts having this blue color, I can simply move this pointer around like this, and this will make the texture dark. You can even adjust the parts having the yellow color with this pointer, but I don't really want to do that. So I'll keep this to the default. And other than this, I'll increase the metallic value to give this some metallic appearance. And we'll even bring down the roughness value so that it reflects the light. And to see how it will look from the front, I can check it from this angle, but I think that it's getting too much blurred again. So I'll reduce the index of refraction value to let's say 1.02, or maybe I'll keep this to 1.01 so that I can see these cans and the texture properly. And you can see that the details are not that much visible, which again is beneficial for this model and the scene that we are planning to prepare. We want the focus or the attention to be on the vending machine and not on the cans, but still the viewer can understand that it's a can which is inside the vending machine. So now I think that I can apply the same texture for the remaining cans too. Like I'll be selecting all of these with the shift key holded like this. And after this, I have to make sure to select the one having the texture at last so that it will be highlighted with the yellow color, meaning that it is actively selected. Then if I press Ctrl L, then this will open the link menu. And if I go to link materials, then the same material will get applied on all these cans. Now again, it's totally up to you if you want to change the scaling or the distortion or the depth to add more details, or if you want to have some different colors or the position of these pointers. So you can make all those changes, and once you're done with that, we can continue creating the rest of the cans, that is the ones that we need for the other two shelves. So I'll go to the solid mode, and then with the X-ray mode enabled, I'll be selecting all these cans. Then I'll create duplicate, press Shift D to move these downwards like this and place these over here. Let me place them properly like this. And what I'm going to do is I'll be selecting this shelf along with the cans with the shift key hold it and then click the forward slash button to keep the focus on them. And now I'll place them randomly so that it doesn't look like we have just copy pasted the assets from the upper shelf. So I'll randomly move these and change their positions. And after this, I'll click on the forward slash button again to return back to the full view. And this is how it looks now. Let's go to the render preview mode to take a better look. Currently all of them are having the same material which is yellow colored, but I want it to be like on the top shelf we have the yellow colored cans, then on the second shelf we'll have some red colored cans, and maybe on the one at the last we can have some blue colored cans. So to bring that change, what I'm gonna do is I'll be selecting one of the cans, let's say this one, then I'll go to the material properties. I'll click on this icon to create a duplicate material, and this will make sure that whatever change I'll do in the texture now won't get applied to other objects. And then I'll basically change this to the red color. And apart from this, I also think that instead of having the dark blue color here, we can have something which looks like the black color. So I'll bring down the brightness further to make this completely black. And I think it actually looks good. Now I'll apply the same material to the other cans on the second shelf. So first I'll select all of them and make sure to select the one that is having the material at last. So with the shift key hold it, I'll select all these like this. then press Ctrl L and link materials. Now just like this, I'll create the duplicate one more time for the lower shelf, then go to the side view by pressing 3 on the numpad. Let's zoom in and I'll push these downwards in the z-axis. Let's say I place these over here, and with the shelf selected, I'll click on the forward slash button to keep the focus on them. Then after this, I'll push these downwards again like this. And now what I'm going to do is I'll be changing the positions and the rotations to make these appear randomly placed like this. Now after this, I'll click the forward slash button again to return back to the complete scene. And finally, this is how the vending machine is looking. Let me also change the color of all these cans that I have here. But before I do that, I think I forgot to change the color of this particular can. So I'll select this and change the color to material.008. And after this, I'll select one of the cans at the bottom shelf and change their color by duplicating the material by clicking here. Then go to the color ramp node and change the red color to, let's say, the dark blue color, or maybe let's keep this to light blue, or maybe something that has a little bit purple color. Alright, I think that this color looks perfectly fine. To apply the same color, or basically the texture on all the remaining cans, I'll select each of these one by one like this, and just make sure to select the one that is having the correct texture at last. Then press Ctrl L and link materials. Looks like I again forgot one of the cans, so I'll select this and change this to material.009. Finally, it looks as if we have the complete scene ready. We just need to add some lighting here inside the vending machine that will allow us to see the cans in a much better way. But before that, what I'm going to do is I'll select this glass that I have on the vending machine, and I'll press H to hide it so that I can see the cans properly. And if I've missed applying any material to any of the cans, then I can do that right now. So I'll go to the front view and check it. I have all the blue cans here, the red cans on the second shelves, and the yellow ones on the top. Now after this, we now have to work on the lighting part. So I'll hide the body of the vending machine as well. And now I have to create some lights. But before I do that, I have to make sure that the scene lights are enabled in the viewport shading menu. So I'll click here to open the viewport shading properties or the menu, and I'll enable the scene lights. Now I'll go to the front view, press Shift A to add a new object, and then I'll go to the light and select the point light. Press G to move this, and let's say I place it over here. Then I'll go to the top view to adjust its position. Let's say I place this over here. Then I'll create its duplicate by pressing Shift D and placing it over here like this. Let's also go to the front view to see if their placements are accurate. And after this, I'll unhide the body so that I can check how much light we need. And currently I think that the light should have a little more power. So I'll change this to 20. Then I'll do the same with this one also. I'll change this to 20. And I'll even change this color to something like the yellow color, or maybe a mix of yellow and orange. Then I'll do the same thing for this light also. I'll change this color to that exact same color. Now again, this thing can vary depending on your own personal preferences. You might feel like some other colors are looking better for the lighting, so you can select those colors instead of yellow. Or if you like to have some less lighting or some more powered lights, all those things are completely up to you. But in this case, I like some yellow lights inside, so I'm choosing these. Now I'll create the duplicates, move these down and place them over here. And at last I'll select the ones at the bottom. I'll create duplicates for this and place them over here. In fact, I think I can even add some lights in this box at the bottom, which is basically the pickup box. So I'll create a duplicate and place them down over here. Let's scale these down in the x-axis to bring them closer. And this is how the vending machine looks. Let me disable the overlays by clicking here so that we can take a look of how the machine is looking from this angle. Let me also unhide the glass that I previously hid it from the scene, and this is how it looks. We have a nice lighting inside the vending machine, some nice cans, and the best part is that we even have some lighting in this pickup box. Other than this, we have the material on the shelves, a smooth and a reflecting look on the material of the body of the vending machine. So everything here looks very nice. The only thing that is left is to have some background. Like if you want to render it out, you will need to have some nice background. So to make that, what I'm gonna do is I'll simply add a plane in the scene. So press Shift A, then go to Mesh and add a plane. I won't be able to see it right now because I'm in the render view and I've also disabled the overlays. So I'll enable them and go to the solid mode. Then I'll switch to the edit mode and rotate this in the x-axis by 90 degrees. Or maybe that's not even needed. I'll just keep this as it is, but we'll scale it up, let's say 20 times. Let's go to the top view to check its placement and I'll zoom out. I'll push it forward in the y-axis and then I'll be selecting this edge over here. Press E to extrude it and this will basically be the background. After this, I'll go to the front or the side view and with the plane selected, I'll push it downwards in the z-axis such that the legs of the vending machine touch the floor. Apart from this, I'll select this edge again and to make this smooth, I'll press Ctrl B to apply bevel and use the scroll wheel to increase the number of loop cuts or basically the number of segments. So I'll keep the number of segments to let's say 12 or maybe 16. Then I'll return back to the object mode, right click to apply shade smooth. And now I have to change the material of this plane because currently it will be completely white that I do not want. So what I'll do is I'll disable the overlays by clicking here and with the plane selected, I'll go to the material properties, create a new material and to give this a very simple background, I'll go to the base color and let's say I keep this to something like pink color or maybe orange. Then this is how it looks. You can change this to any color that you like depending on how well the contrast is with respect to the materials on the vending machine. So you can do all this stuff and I think I should scale it up in the x-axis so that I can properly have a view of the vending machine like this. Now it all feels completed, but right now if I go to the render menu and try to render the image, then it will show me no camera added. So I will have to add a camera in the scene to render this out. So press Shift A, then select the camera. And to have the camera view as the current view, I'll use the shortcut which is Ctrl Alt 0 on the numpad. Then I'll click on this lock icon to toggle the camera view and I'll change the angle to something like this. And after this, the next thing that I'll do is to again click on the lock icon to lock the camera view. And other than this, I will like to have one or two cans placed here at the pickup box. So I'll go to the solid mode and I'll also enable the overlays. And let's say I select this particular can here. Then I'll go to the front view, press Shift D to create a duplicate and place this over here. Rotate this in the x-axis by 90 degrees. And let's even rotate this in the z-axis like this to make this appear like it's fallen down. Then I'll create a duplicate of this, place this over here and rotate this in the z-axis like this and left click. Let's go to the front view to check how it appears. I think I should move this in the x-axis and even rotate this slightly like this. Now I'll again go to the render preview mode and switch to the camera view. Here I think that I should rotate both of these in the z-axis like this and I'll even place this over here close to this one. Now all these things that I'm doing here are completely optional. Like you can skip this part, but I'm just doing it to add some more details. Now coming to the rendering part, if I try to render an image of this scene from the camera view, then I'll get this result with no lighting except for the scene lights that we added. And the reason why it's happening is that in the viewport shading menu, we disabled the scene world in order to have this lighting that you can see right now, but it's not the one that we are going to see in the final render. So if I enable this, then this is how the final render will look, completely dark and having no lights at all. But we can fix this thing by using some HDRI. So what you can do is you can go to the world properties and then click here, change this to the environment texture. And then you can add any HDRI. It can be downloaded from somewhere or you can use the default Blender HDRI by clicking on this open button and selecting the file. And here in this case, the one that I'll be selecting is the Blender default HDRI. And to get it here, I'll click on the open button. Then this window will appear from where I can select the file that I want to load. And if you want to know the location where you have the default Blender HDRIs, then this is that location. Basically, you have to go to your C drive. Then you will have to open the program files folder. There you will find the Blender Foundation folder. Then you will have a folder named Blender 5.0 or depending on the version that you're using. In that you will find another folder with the version name that is 5.0 in this case. Then you will have the data files folder and in that you will find the studio lights folder where you will find another folder named as world and in that folder you will get all these HDRIs. So you don't need to memorize all this. I'll try to add this path in the description so that you can copy paste it from there. I'm not very sure about how this will work in anything other than Windows like Linux or Mac, but I'll try to find it and add it in the description as well. for anyone who is not working on Windows. But for Windows, this is the default location. Just make sure that you change this 5.0 to that particular version of Blender that you are using. Now coming back to selecting the HDRI for the lighting, I'll be selecting the forest.exr and will click on open image. And with this, I now have this lighting in the scene just like I previously had, and it will even be visible in the final render version. Now you can control the strength of this light in the background or the environment by going to the strength value here. Like I can set this to 0 0.5 or 0 0.6 or maybe 0 0.4 depending on how much lighting I want in the scene. And after this, once everything is completely done, I click on the render button to render the image, and this is how the final render version is appearing. Of course, you can make changes and improve this with the better lighting, better colors, or by adding more details. But I wanted to create something very simple with simple materials, lesser number of colors, and a normal lighting. And this brings us to the end of this video. You learned to model this vending machine with little details. Then we worked on the shading part, added the lighting, and at last we rendered an image to get the final output. If you learned something new from this video, then do hit the like button and subscribe for more such tutorials, courses, and informational videos. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.